The Supreme Court is hearing arguments over nationwide injunctions blocking President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. 3 federal appeals courts have kept the order on hold, finding it very likely unconstitutional. President Trump argues the lower courts exceeded their authority. Now he's asking the Supreme Court to lift the injunctions or at least allow the administration to start planning for the change. So far, the justices have pressed the Trump administration's attorney on the potential impact of eliminating those injunctions. And Justice Brett Kavanaugh waded into the immediate consequences of the order going into effect.
On the day after it goes into effect, this is just a very practical question how this is going to work. What do hospitals do with a newborn? What do states do with a newborn?
I don't think they do anything different. What the executive order says in Section 2 is that federal officials do not accept documents that have the wrong designation of citizenship from people who are subject to the executive order.
How are they going to know that?
The states can continue to, the federal officials will have to figure that out.
How?
So you could imagine a number of ways that the federal officials could.
Such as
they could require a showing of, documentation showing legal presence in the country. For a temporary visitor, for example, they could see whether they're on a B-1 visa, which would exclude kind of the birthright citizenship in that context.
for all the newborns? Is that how that's going to work?
Again, we don't know because the agencies were never given the opportunity to formulate the guidance. They had 30 days.
They're only going to have 30 days to do this. You think they can get it together in time?
They're under. That's what the executive order instructs them to do, and hopefully they will do so. Again, it's a speculative and hypothetical scenario because they were enjoined from even starting that process.
And now the immigrant advocates' attorneys arguing against lifting the injunction. Let's bring in senior White House correspondent Selena Wang and constitutional lawyer Jeff Lewis for more. Jeff, the scope of this hearing is limited to the injunctions, but some of the justices, like we just heard there, are also talking a little bit about the merits of the case at large. What do you make of that?
Well, none of the justices have touched the merits in terms of weighing in on whether or not they think the executive order is enforceable. Instead, they're asking the question about whether they need to discuss the merits in connection with the injunction. And I think at the end of the day, the opinion issued by this judge or by this court is not going to touch the merits of this case.
Selena, what sticks out to you from how the Trump administration is making their case?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the core questions here is, can an individual district judge block the president's policy nationwide? The Trump administration is arguing that the ability of these federal judges to do that is forcing them to race from court to court, trying to win every case that challenges their policies. They argue that this is creating an unfair playing field, saying that those who challenge them can win anywhere, while the Trump administration has to, quote, win everywhere. Now, that was met from a lot of skepticism from Justice Sotomayor, who said that the argument, quote, makes no sense whatsoever, saying that it would limit the ability of the district court, but also the Supreme Court to offer nationwide relief. Now, there was one significant exchange where she drew an analogy to what if the next president, a new president, issued an executive order banning ownership of guns. She asked if the court would have to, quote, sit back and wait for individuals to sue one by one to challenge the constitutionality for such an order.
Jeff, sometimes the justices and the way they ask their questions, they show a little bit of how they're feeling about a particular issue. Do you see that in the questions we're seeing so far from the justices?
Yeah, not as to the merits, but as to the leanings towards a nationwide injunction. I count at least 3 justices, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson, who are hostile to any attack on nationwide injunctions, maybe Barrett. The question is, will there be 5 justices who are willing to strike down nationwide injunctions in this case or in general?
Selena, and I know you're watching some protests outside the court. What are you hearing from demonstrators there?
Yeah, Diane, not too far from where we are now, outside of the Supreme Court, there's a group of protesters, and I spoke to folks who traveled from across the country, including a sizable group that came from California, and they're protesting not only the administration's stance on birthright citizenship, but also the president's immigration and deportation plans overall. Now, I spoke to one young woman who is the daughter of undocumented migrants. She said this case, of course, hits at home. She said she wants to be here to send a message that they all have a voice, that she's a proud American. I spoke to another young woman who is a first-generation daughter of immigrants from Mexico, and she's currently a college student. Take a listen to what she told me about why she's here.
We love the United States, and we've been working here for so many years. We've been able to help other communities in our surrounding areas for little to nothing back, any benefits at all. To me, I'm proud to say that I'm a daughter of immigrant parents, the first in my family to go to university, first to graduate from high school as well, second in my class, and I'm proud to say that my sister is the valedictorian in my class as well. So we are living proof that we've been able to do great things coming to this country to not only provide for ourselves, but to provide to other people.
And we heard the justices ask some of the procedural and logistical questions. Immigration advocates are arguing that if this nationwide injunction is narrowed, that it could cause some real chaos on the ground, because there could be a situation where kids born in some states are considered U.S. citizens, but in other states they are not. So you could see a case of families trying to get to states where their newborn child will be considered U.S. citizens, and that could create overwhelmed hospitals along the border and questions about paperwork, regulations. A lot is up in the air.
All right, Selena Wang, Jeff Lewis, thank you both.